Hello everyone and welcome to the Planning Game Podcast, your weekly podcast for real world planning solutions to real world planning problems. My name's John McDermott from Town Planning Expert. Let's get right into it. Right, excellent. So with me today is Craig Jones of Mews Estates. Hi Craig, how are you doing?
Hi John, yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
I'm very well. Now you're joining me from what appears to be a car in what, Wales?
No, I'm in Ireland. I've just escaped the house with the children. I've just come down to just about the only place I can get 4G in the village, so I'm just sat in the car, yeah.
The car audio studio, excellent. So Mews Estates is a joint venture between you and, remind me.
It's a joint venture between myself and one of my best mates, James Davis. James is currently a finance analyst over with Dyson in the UK, and I'm working as a quantity surveyor. I've been doing that for about 10 years, so we both made a conscious decision, myself maybe 2 years ago, that I wanted to get out of my job and obviously work towards development. And say 12 months ago, I managed to drag James along on the journey. So it's been slow progress for 6 or 7 months, but then the last, say, 5 or 6, we've really started seeing some good things happening. So it's actually good timing that I speak to you today, because we actually signed our second deal, or agreed our second deal today. So yeah, things are good.
Fantastic. And finance analyst and quantity surveyor, I mean, that's what 2 of the 5 power team members already nailed down, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm great with numbers in terms of construction, but in terms of general, James is like a whiz kid. He's like something off the Big Bang Theory. So it's, yeah, it works well, and obviously he's learning every day about construction as well. So yeah, we're confident now in terms of the due diligence that we have done on our sites, that all the boxes are ticked, if you like. No stone been unturned. So yeah, we're confident with what we're doing.
Good man, good man. And the area that you're investing in, the ones we've spoken to about, and I'm sure the one you're going to raise today is over in Wales. And I know James isn't Wales based, is he? He's elsewhere in the country, from memory.
Well, no, like I touched on just now, I'm actually over in Ireland. James is living in Swindon. So we made a conscious decision that we'd focus on Swindon, obviously where he lives, and I go back every few weeks to Cheltenham, which is where I lived for 10 years prior to moving to Ireland. So we spent maybe 6 or 7 months looking into those areas, obviously going through the process of sending the letters out, looking for the off-market deals. And then out of nowhere, somebody got in contact from Newport, which is where we're both originally from a letter I'd sent out going back maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, it's testing me, like, don't give up on those sites, those letters that you've sent out. Make sure you get your second letter out, because those things do work. Yeah, we've just secured an option agreement on that site, and obviously you've just issued the planning for us.
Amazing. So proof positive that no deal is ever truly dead. Yeah. That's 2 years worth of brewing, as it were, in the mind of the vendor, and then it's come back 2 years after sending a letter for them to say, hang on a minute, we're interested in this. Really,
yeah, we was actually taking us right out of our comfort zone, because it was only maybe 6 months ago we sat down with yourself and Brett at the Mastermind and said our strategy was to maybe focus on multiple dwellings, but only 2 or 3 plots. We wanted to find our feet first, and obviously we've just put the planning in for the 10 now, so it's kind of sink or swim. But I think we're comfortable with it. Obviously we were happy for the scales of economy to kick in on 2 or 3 dwellings, so why not go and put a few more on there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So, for those who haven't listened to the planning game before, where have you been? But the planning game podcast is really a recorded consultation. It's Craig asking me whatever he wants to ask me, and I'll try and answer as fully as humanly possible and be as descriptive as humanly possible, given that this is a podcast and people might be listening to this on the M25, etc. And the final thing I need to always say is that this advice is non-BBC Two compatible. I do have planning-induced Tourette's, and some swear words may come out. So if you've got kids in the car, Peppa Pig might be a better solution, many other children's comics available, than this. But if you're an adult and listening freely, then enjoy me swearing as liberally as I probably will. Okay, that's all the safety message out the way, Craig. Over to you, mate.
Okay. Well, the first query that we had was relating to the site we just discussed. Obviously, you've put an application in for reserve matters. Obviously, we discussed this in detail before, so I'm aware of kind of why we've done it, but I'm not too familiar with what the process is moving forward. Obviously, it's a dark art, and I'm sure there's a reason you've done what you've done, but I just wondered if you could go through that and what we could expect over the next few months, because we've signed up to the option agreement. We've only got 15 months to get everything over the line, so we kind of need to know the timescales and what's happening in the near future.
Sure. So, an outline and reserve matters application is a two-stage application rather than a single-stage application. The reason why we've done it this way as your first one is because this is essentially still a little bit speculative. This is your first deal. It's your first big deal. And yes, you're jumping straight feet first into major development. So we want to see from the council in a much more legally binding way whether or not they're going to play ball. Now, we do that using the first stage application that I've submitted for you, which is an outline planning permission. I can't use permission in principle in Wales because PIP, it doesn't exist in Wales. It exists in England, but it doesn't exist in Wales. So, or at least no references I can find to it in the Welsh planning legal system. So the only option I've got for you is outline. Now, the site is too big for me to do a PIP anyway. It's 10 units in size. So the reality is we've whacked an outline application in with matters of access to be considered. Now, what that does is set the principle of development, the quantum, the number of units that you will get on that site, and the way you get to those units, so the means of access, leaving off the reserved matters. Reserved matters are the other side of this two-part equation. So outline plus reserved matters equals full. The reserved matters that we'll have to face when we eventually get there, and we need an architect, are matters of scale, layout, appearance, and landscape. Yeah? Albeit we've given the council a flavour, we've given them some ideas about what we're going to look for. We're going to look for semi-detached housing and a terraced house in the mix. We're going to look for two-storey scale because that's what they approved previously and that's what we want again. We're going to look for an arrangement which broadly reflects everything else down in the area. So the layout's pretty hard set, but we're not giving them that yet. And the reason we're not giving them that yet is because we're trying to avoid the need to pay an architect. We don't want to pay an architect until we're sure what the council are going to give and where they're going to be interesting. Welsh planning is a bit more of a dark art than English planning because it's the English planning system only a little bit more dated. Some things haven't caught up in Wales like they have in England. And so we've put the outline proposal in to minimize your risk, minimize your initial cash flow risk, because a full application would be the better part of 20 to 30,000 once you've added planning fees, architects fees, etc., etc., etc. So we've minimized your initial cash flow risk. risk, and we've simplified it for the planning authority to a certain degree. We've given them the ability to utilize a system that is well versed, well worked, and allows them to issue a planning permission with some certainty about what's going to go on there in the future.
Okay.
So that first application is going to take about 8 to 12 weeks. And you've got 15 months on your option, so we've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
So worst case, it's going to take 12 weeks, 3 months. The second application is the reserve matters. So whilst that first application is going on, once we get to 21 days or so, we can start asking the council questions. We can start polling them and saying, look, what's going on with this application? You're competent to make a decision. What's the solution? And they can be quite open and honest with us at that stage and say, well, we like this, or well, we'd like you to change this, or we'd like you to fiddle around with this. Okay. Great, that's fine, because that's all beautiful pre-application work. We treat the outline as a glorified pre-app, albeit one that's legally binding. And we then move into the reserve matters phase in the knowledge that if we do this, and this, if we do this sequence of things that the council like, then they'll give us planning permission and we'll get our reserve matters approved, and we'll get ourselves into a position where another sort of 8 weeks down the line, you've got a full planning permission in your bag for 10 houses.
Okay.
And that's the process that we've kind of worked on this with, because, as I said, we don't want you risking the farm on the first application. And this is a big application to do your first one on. But it just so happened that this was the site that came along.
Yeah. I mean, the concern is, just from speaking with the planning department, there is a backlog. You talked about the periods. Where do we stand if they don't stand by those? Obviously, we don't want the clock ticking on our side. Do we just have to suck it up and wait as long as it takes? Or?
There are backlogs, but the 12 weeks I've estimated for you is taking into account a month delay.
Okay.
Because this application should take 8 weeks. In reality, it's a very simple application, and having looked through the planning history, it's one that they've approved twice before.
Yeah, I mean, the concern is we had to fight tooth and nail to get the 15-month option in the end.
I know.
So it's, once we've played the card and the owner obviously sees what we're submitting, it's going to be very difficult to get an extension on that.
No, I know that. I think what I have to do as a planning consultant is balance risk to client and risk to site.
Yeah.
I think if we because they've only ever dealt with outline applications on this site before, giving an unspecified number of dwellings, I think the only option we had to balance risk to you was the outline. I know that's an additional time period, but it's more effective than using pre-application, because pre-application is not legally binding.
I mean, obviously, we don't just come to you for knowledge in terms of your technical knowledge. Obviously, we needed somebody who could provide us with a strategy as well, because that's something that we don't have any experience with. So we got no doubt that we're doing it the right way. I mean, one of the main concerns is the density.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we've gone with the old character is king, and everything looks fine, but you just worry that it might be a little bit tight.
The density, I wouldn't worry too much about that, because the council have a policy. And you'll like what I'm about to say next. When I reworked your numbers, because remember we were initially talking about a greater density on this site.
Yeah.
When I reworked your numbers, you came bang in line with that policy, 50 dwellings per hectare.
Okay.
It's a 2 hectare site, 2,000 square meters, and you're proposing 10 dwellings, which is
it's almost a case of it all looks too good.
Yeah. But I understand that completely, Craig.
Yeah.
But in reality, this is your first application, and in any application process, you are taking a risk. Planning is not risk-free. But the job of the consultant, and any good consultant, I don't speak for myself there, I speak for others, any good consultant should be out there de-risking their applications for their clients. And any bad consultant who is not de-risking those applications is playing monopoly with their clients' money.
Yeah, it's not cheap, is it?
No.
No.
It's not a game that everyone can play. And it's not a game that anyone should play. They should only play it when they're ready. I've got no fear about you being ready to develop a 10-house site as your straight off the bat site. You're a QS, for crying out loud. You're going to know these build cost numbers backwards, upside down, and sideways. And I've got no doubt that your business partner is going to know the financials upside down and sideways. It is just getting it through the planning application.
Yeah, that's the concern is when obviously you're a startup as well. Things are tight, So I think our fees for this, just the council alone, were maybe £1,300, and obviously that might not be a lot to everybody, but when you throw in all the other fees associated with starting up a business and everything else we're trying to do, every penny counts. So it's good to know that that's not all. It's we haven't got one roll of the dice, if you like.
That's it. You certainly don't. And you've left yourself plenty of time. And this is the important message I always want to give about options. Build in lots of lovely time. You've built in a huge amount of time, 15 months, to get the planning phase done so you can exchange and complete on your subject to planning option. That's a huge amount of time. Most people are very not even pragmatic, optimistic about the planning process. They think planning can deliver a planning application in 8 weeks. And the planning system today just can't do that. It just cannot deliver that. With the amount of delays UK-wide, not just in Wales, but Scotland, Northern Ireland and England, you're lucky to get a basic householder application through in the base 8-week period. You're more looking like 10 weeks on a basic householder. Now, granted, we've taken some bits away from the council for them to consider. That we've removed quite a lot of the detail from this application on purpose to enable them to do it faster. That being said, the estimate I've given you is based on our delay.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing for us was that we had an opportunity to go back in after a potential refusal, which obviously we've got now. So it'll give us a bit more reason to relax if we do get the first one come back in a negative fashion.
And you're in a much better position now than some others who for example choose to bridge a purchase or get stuck in a you must buy this property on a bridge and then run the planning gauntlet. One of my a friend of mine and a former client from many years ago took some advice from me on a property, then went and saw another person, took their advice over mine. My advice was to do a very simple prior approval and get out of the property quickly in the 56 days because their bridge was expensive. They didn't do that, and they went elsewhere and ended up 2 years or so down the line with all the fees associated with multiple planning applications and all the fees associated with bridge. And as you and I both know, bridges are 1% per month, less than that if you're incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine, on a substantial investment. And I'm being very careful here not to say who the person was because things are still going on there and where the site was, etc., how much it was. But if you go down the bridging route, you have to be sure on your exit and when, because if you don't and you're not, then the interest on the bridge is just going to be crippling.
Yeah, I mean, like you said just now, for a startup like ourselves, if that only happens once and you're done, aren't you? So the cash flow's gone. But yeah, I mean, that obviously appreciate your help on that. The one issue that site doesn't sort for us is because of the type of site it is. We're looking to do the built-to-rent model on that, but that's going to be down the line. So we obviously made the decision that we would like to try and find something that we could turn around a little bit quicker and sell on for cash flow that would enable at least one of us to get out of our jobs and start working full-time in the business.
Yeah, I mean, that's very sensible. When I talk to developers, I talk about having a two-stream development model. So I talk about the tortoise and the hare. This is something that we go into great detail in Malta and Goa, our boot camps about. And make sure people will have a tortoise and a hare strategy. Hare strategies are fast. They're designed to be fast. They're designed to use PD or prior approval to get very quick wins, or simple flips. They're cash flowing strategies. They're very important to cash flow. So that would be a hare strategy, and doing flips or very simple forms of development that you can access quickly is a very good way of generating cash flow. Tortoise strategies are very much like Wells Close, like your one in Newport. It's very much a slower burn. You're going to be looking at, I mean, you're estimating at what, a 12-month build program after you.
That's
after
right. Yeah.
done? Yeah. So in reality, your outlay is only going to be recouped after that 12-month build program, and you've sold out, or you've started renting. So that's a tortoise strategy, big lumpy money that happens slowly. So you and your business partner having a hare strategy to be working on whilst the slow work in planning occurs is a very, very good idea.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was waiting for a bus to come along, because this one kind of come through the back door as well. We'd sent a letter out for another site in Swindon, and the owner come back and say, well, I've sold that one, but I've got this other one in Chippenham, another area that we weren't looking at. If you're interested, and it was off market, planning for 8 one-bedroom apartments, and it's pretty much ready to go. I mean, the site demolition and site clearance and all of that will be done for arrival of the builder. So we've had 3 weeks to do the due diligence. One of our issues has been, our main issue in fact, is getting a lid on construction costs. The drawings that we've got from the architect who took them through the planning, they aren't too clear.
No, they won't be, because they'll just be planning drawings. They won't be control drawings. They'll be planning
this is the issue where we're trying to maximise like the commercial viability. So it would have been ideal to have some sort of technical or construction type drawings.
This is the big difference between planning and building control submissions. Planning deals with what the building looks like and some basics on the interior, the layout of the site, etc., where the car parking is going to go. It deals with broader stuff. Building control tells you how to build it, as you and I both know, and deals with the minutiae, where all the electricity points are going to go, where the stud partitioning is going to go, where the fireboarding is going to go, how thick that fireboarding is, how much Celotex you need to put in the building, how much other acoustics you need to put in the building, what is the thickness of the windows that you're installing in the wall. That's what Regs does. So what you could do, if it's not too horrendous in price, is go back to the original architect and ask them for their costings on building out the next phase, which would be the building regs drawings.
Funnily enough, I've only done that today. I had a good chat with them. But I think we need somebody, obviously, who's going to maximise the potential as well. So has a bit of a commercial head on them. Just things like I'm not too clear on what's the national standards for the size of these apartments. What can we get away with? Thinking of things like room sizes, floor to ceiling heights, and obviously I want to reduce the circulation space as much as possible.
Sure. So let's answer a couple of those really, really quickly. National floor space standards for one-bedroom apartments range from 37 square meters base with a shower room, 39 square meters with a bathroom, That's for 1 bedroom, 1 person unit, and 50 square meters if you're putting 2 people in it. The
Okay.
only differentiator between the two is actually the size of the bedroom. Bedroom national minimum standard is 7.5 square meters for a single, 11.5 square meters for a double. There are some other little niggly standards in there about bedroom widths, but those are the big things you need to consider. In terms of circulation space, that's more a building control question rather than a planning question, because in reality, building regs is going to be focused on fire protection and fire escape, whereas planning is just going to be involved in pure size. So you can, as long as you can get people safely out of the flat, reduce the circulation space all the way down. What you have to be careful of is the kitchen, which is the main fire generating entity within any dwelling.
Okay. But in terms of, say, as I look at the approved drawing, say I look on plan, and say the footprint of the building is, say it's 150 square meters over 3, and then there's 3 stories, so obviously 450 square meters. There's no dimensions on the plans, it's just flats on a site. Now,
Well,
how much creep can there be there?
Well, those plans are to scale. So there may not be dimensions in the traditional sense, but if you apply a scale ruler to them, they will scale, because all planning drawings must be to a metric scale, either 1 to 100 or 1 to 50. So what you should be able to do is put a metric scale ruler on those plans, print them out in the size that they were presented, and they'll have a size figure on them somewhere. They'll tell you what the original paper size is. Print them out at 100.
I've been through that process, but my question is, can I inflate the size of the rooms and make the circulation spaces, so the corridors or the communal areas, if you like, can I make them smaller, as long as I don't go larger than the total footprint of the building?
You can, as long as you do it, if you're going to build them like that, as long as you do it using the minor material amendment route. So you would have to put in what is an exchange of plans in the old building reg sense to the planning authority. You pay a modest fee for it, and they do exactly what I've said, a change of plan. So it just varies the planning condition on the application that tells you what plans you're looking at. They do it as a minor material amendment. It's issued as a new consent, which is all rather helpful and useful and lovely for you, because they normally then update standard condition 1 for you at the same time, which is the implementation period. If they're feeling nice. If they're not and not feeling that generous, then they won't do that. And then use those plans. But that's all you have to do. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, Craig. You just use the minor material amendment pathway in order to get your plans that you want. And yes, you can inflate the size of rooms. Yes, you can deflate the amount of wasted communal space, as long as you know you can build it.
Just don't take the piss.
Just don't take the piss.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's cool.
Sounds like a great project, though. Does it?
Yeah. I mean, it's nice for us to know there's one ready to go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would always say you need a third. So you've got one in your pipeline running through planning. You've got one in your pipeline ready to go. So you need a third that's essentially behind your planning one. That you're negotiating on. So the danger, as always, for new developers is you run out of development projects. You run through the first one, great, fabulous, and you forget to go and look for number 2. You've got the benefit that number 2 has just come through the door and replaced number 1 in the queue. So you've got number 1 and number 2. So in reality, one of you now needs to be going and hunting for number 3.
Yeah, I mean, the issue we've got is, obviously we're both particularly busy with the day job, so we're trying to shoehorn everything in as well. So we kind of made a conscious decision to focus our efforts on this just for the time being. I see what you're saying. One of these could easily go the wrong way, but I always remember Andy saying about, you've got to keep that conveyor belt going. It's like building a car.
Well, that's it. I mean, and me and Andy use the same metaphor, which is development is a production line, the best, and you need to feed that production line with the best raw materials possible. The problem is you've got to go and find those raw materials first. So you either do that through a deal sourcer or someone similar if you don't have the time to invest, or you have to try and be regimented with your time. Difficult with a family, I know. I'm supposed to be on annual leave today, and I'm talking to you because that's the way I've organized my time. But difficult, I know, but something that you do have to rationalize before you get too bogged down, because planning time is slow time. Yeah, that's just time you're going to waste. So you don't want to have all that waste time. You want to be doing other stuff. Whilst the applications are running, your minor material amendment that we've discussed and in your planning application is running, you really want to be one of you really wants to be focusing on building pipeline, sending out letters still. If you are really struggling for time, then go and get yourself a VA. I know it's something that Andy and myself and Tom and Lloyd and everyone either at TPX or at Whitebox recommends. It's a very cost-effective thing to do. You pay pence in reality for someone to do the job for you, and in reality it is so worthwhile.
And what type of stuff would they be doing for you?
So I would have them, for example, if you like with planning deals, I would be having them scraping the planning approved database for your favoured council, say Swindon, and writing to everyone that's just had a planning approval.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely an option. I mean, I think we've been making good use of leveraging other people's time. It's just obviously with these two coming on, everything's gone from theory to practice now.
But that's the thing, you've gone from 0 to 100 miles an hour in less than a second, in reality.
Exactly. It's all become
and now
very
you've
real.
got to manage the freight train that's running at 100 miles an hour. Yeah. In fact, it's not just one freight train you've got to manage, you've got to manage two of them. You need a conductor somewhere else dealing with the passengers on that train, the other things that need to happen in order to get your development dreams really kicking off, because they're kicking off. You've got no doubt about that at all. You're on an amazing pathway, but you need another actor in the game now to be building your pipeline, building the more trains behind you so that you've got more to send down the track.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's
cool.
Great, John. Anyway, I mean, like you said, it's just a matter of time management, and we're clear on where we want to go and how we want to do it. It's just making sure we, don't make too many mistakes along the line.
End of the day, mate, you're surrounded by a fantastic ecosystem of professionals. You've got myself at TPX, you've got Andy and Lloyd, you've got Nick, you've got everyone rooting for you and helping you along to make this work for you. At some point in time, I really should do a podcast with Andy and Lloyd instead of just plugging them every 5 minutes. And that brings me on to a plug of my own. If you are finding, you're getting to a point where actually you need to start focusing on building pipeline and you need time away from the day job to do that, then that's what the Goa and the Malta retreat are for. That's their focus, building pipeline, applying planning packages to that and making things work. And all the details for that are on our website. But I'll say no more of that because that's not what the purpose of this podcast is for. Craig, you've been an absolute superstar.
Thanks, John. I appreciate
so much for joining me today. And yeah, I'm sure everyone at home listening will thank you for sharing so much of the projects that you're working on and so much of the challenges. Join me next week, ladies and gents. We have the amazing Fahad Khan on the Planning Game podcast, and I will catch you next week. I've been John McDermott. He's been Craig Jones. Thank you so much.